All right, so I think we're live. So, welcome everybody. So, I see a lot of you here from North America and realize it's late in the night for all of you. So, really appreciate you staying up and joining me here for this. And welcome all of you from Europe and Turkey and India and Australia and New Zealand, wherever you are. Yeah, this, and I apologize for forgetting about tomorrow. There's a few messages later, and it's like, oh my God, I've just, I was so busy and involved with the launching of our book, Fearless Presence, that I just completely forgot. And by the way, for those of you who might be interested, this is a book that's a compendium. So it's an anthology from about 25 different authors. And the basic theme is, okay, how do we live our lives in full presence, fearlessly and joyfully and gratefully and powerfully here on this earth? How can we bring that soul quality into our daily lives in a way that we can make an impact in the world around us? And my own chapter was titled When Death Becomes an Ally. So we're talking about the awareness of what death means. And death not just being physical death, but also death to old states of consciousness or old paradigms and beliefs and emotional states, or whatever it is that we've become attached to, people, circumstances, ideas. In the last couple of years, we've become used to a certain way of being, which is very different from what we've had in the past. There's been a curtailment of freedom of movement. There's been a level of medical tyranny that goes on, which takes a bit of getting used to, and some choices that need to be made. So all of this is about how we can confront these external circumstances in a way that we can bring our soul presence through. So rather than taking it as something to be feeling victimized by, how can we rise above circumstances and use whatever is around us, whatever is going on, to make deeper choices about ourselves, about our world, about our belief systems, about our realities. So today also happens to be July 4th, at least here, I think in North America, it probably is just beginning, except maybe if you're in California. So, and it's a unique year because it's not just Independence Day in terms of the colonies breaking free from colonial powers, especially England and France and Spain, but also it's the Pluto return for the United States, which means basically that Pluto takes it's generally a 248-year cycle, but in terms of how it impacts on the U.S. chart, because of the dynamic nature of this movement, this year was actually the return, where Pluto, as it's transiting through the solar system from the perspective of the Earth, makes a direct conjunction to where it was 248 years ago when the US became independent. Actually, it's not 248, it would be 76 to 245. But that's the way it turns out, in terms of geocentric cycles. So what that means for us is that Pluto represents death. It also represents rebirth, renewal, rising up from a cycle of death. It represents the cycle of Pluto, of karma, which demands that we uh, face the consequences of what we have sowed. Doesn't necessarily mean an eye for an eye. It's all about awareness. If we can grow in awareness, we don't need to repeat the mistakes of the past, and we don't need to experience the consequences of those mistakes. So this year, interestingly, there's been mass graves, a number of mass graves being discovered in Canada as well as the United States of indigenous people who were slaughtered and buried alive, or at least buried in mass. So these are things that have happened not just in the Americas, they've happened all over. For those of you in Australia may remember many such instances where Aboriginal people have been slaughtered and en masse. The culture has been ransacked, the children have been stolen, the spiritual realities have been demolished, places of worship have been destroyed. This is part of uh, a strategy of duality that has existed on this earth for long enough that it's affected each one of us. It's not just things that have happened externally, it's affected our psyches. We've experienced this victimization or perpetration inside each one of us in response to global events. So it's about taking responsibility. This year, Pluto return, this particular time, Independence Day, is about how we make new choices. And the United States, for better or for worse, represents the new humanity also. So whatever's going on in the United States affects the rest of the world. So none of us can hide from that. So the karmic consequences that the US experiences, we all go through, we all face. We all have to rise up to and change. We all have to grow up, become mature as a species. So that's the choices that we have right now. We've spoken a lot about this. We've spoken about the magic box prophecy from Australia, what that means in terms of the renewal of the human species, the new timelines that are being created. I have to say that if these new timelines are not established and anchored very, very strongly, I don't believe that we will survive as a species, or perhaps even as a planetary consciousness. And I'm saying this not just because of what we're going through culturally as a human species at this time. I'm also speaking about cosmic cycles. We've talked about this as well. What's going on right now is there's a massive increase in cosmic ray activity in the atmosphere of the Earth. And what these cosmic rays do, because they're basically protons, plasma. Plasma is what is referred to as the fourth state of matter. So there's solids, liquids, gases, and plasma. And plasma is when the electrical forces, electromagnetic forces are strong enough to split the forces that hold an atom together. And so you have free-floating protons, free-floating electrons and neutrons, which are traveling close to the speed of light, but are not bonded in terms of matter. So they can affect matter, they can be shaped by matter, but they're closer to consciousness. If you go deep enough into atomic and subatomic matter, what you end up is consciousness. And physicists who've been splitting the atom and splitting the subatomic particles ad nauseum have come to that conclusion that essentially everything is energy and all energy is consciousness. So this whole idea of physical matter is an illusion from that perspective, even though it may appear real to physical senses. So these cosmic rays that are bombarding the Earth right now, they're directly affecting the Earth's um, climate, the Earth's constitution. They're affecting the different species of life, whether or not we're conscious of it. Um, Many of the volcanic tectonic activity, the earth changes and climate changes that we're experiencing is all based on the increase of cosmic rays, galactic cosmic rays and solar cosmic rays. So let me just quickly go through what this means. Um, the Earth, the Sun, is also going through a cooling cycle. So forget about what you've heard about global warming. That's done. Right now, the Sun is reversing itself. So 400 years ago, we went through a mini ice age, and then solar output increased as cosmic forces were able to reverse a cycle of collapse on the sun. And since then, there's been an activation of solar activity, or increase in solar activity, leading to solar winds that dispel galactic cosmic rays. So when solar activity is at its peak, cosmic ray activity affecting the Earth is at its minimum. Um, Now that the sun is cooling, there will be an increase of cosmic rays entering the Earth's atmosphere. So this is something to be aware of. It's going to lead to significantly stronger Earth change events. So we'll affect, we are already experiencing massive fires around the world. That will increase more earthquake activity, more volcanic eruptions. And how does that affect human consciousness? It's an unknown, but we'll see how that affects us. It's probably going to create a dislocation of our relationship with our subtle bodies. And both allow us to more directly access the soul body, or if we're not able to do that, it will lead to a breakdown of the physical body, which means a lot of people will end up leaving. So these things are starting to happen already. We can work, some of you were mentioning some of the power centers, Haleakala in Hawaii, Sedona, Mount Shasta, um, whole chunks of land and ocean that have ley lines crossing through, which are connected with meridian streams of Mother Earth. So I was talking with someone yesterday, in fact, who was talking about 248 locations. This is something that the Kogi people mentioned, that there's 248 locations on the Earth which are prime power centers, and we need to work with these. So it's like acupuncture points on the body of the Earth. So if we have acupuncture points and can stimulate those or sedate those as needed, it balances the flow of energies and allows for a connection between the different states of body and consciousness, and can lead to greater health, especially when there's been imbalances. So human consciousness has been going through imbalances, and it's time for us to move into greater health, greater alignment, greater soul resonance. This, by the way, is what the book Fearless Presence is about also, along with my other books, Homo Luminous, Homo Gaia Luminous. So please, if you haven't already got those, get yourself a copy. And I hate to say this because I feel like I'm promoting something, and I'm not good at that. But much of the information in these books, which I've been synthesizing from a lot of different sources, is really important for us right now. As we go through this time of transition, karmic shifts that are going on, cosmic transitions that are going on, our survival as a human species, our emergence as a new human species, it's all related to these times. So the more we can understand and the more we can direct our conscious attention into this, the more we can make use of these choices that we are given. Um, so Mary is asking, Marianne, where can we find the list of 248 sites? I'm curious about that myself. This came up in a conversation I was having yesterday with a friend in Colombia, and she's connected with the Kogi people, and so she's going to check with them. I'm very curious about this myself. Steve is asking, where can we get a copy of the book? Amazon. Um, I'm not typically a fan of Amazon because I don't typically um, like big technology. I'd much rather, buy at a bookstore, a local bookstore with local um, um, people. But in the world that we live in today, it's becoming increasingly difficult. Bookstores are closing down, small chains are closing down. But anyway, this book is available on Amazon as a ebook right now. Yeah, at 99 cents, which also supports a promotional wave. So it's achieved bestseller status in 4 different countries right now in many different categories, which promotes the sales of the book in times to come. So please, if that's something that you would like to do, go for it. At some point, it will be available as a print version also. Um, there's also a question from Steve. Would you mind explaining about Gaia's gardens? Sure. This is a dream I've had for the last couple of years, and there's been many people now who are coming together with that same vision. And this is about creating physical centers across the planet um, that have the vision of creating a collective frequency of light, which can then be broadcast across the earth. So people coming together to learn about the light body, to create a link between the physical body and the light body through whatever practices we can use, which includes the use of medical technology, but primarily working with internal technologies. There's a lot of old Ayurvedic traditions, for instance. Uh, Kaya Kalpa is one name for this, which means rejuvenation of the body. So, using a combination of total darkness, certain herbs, and alchemical gold to open up connections with the endocrine system, to balance the chakras, to bring in more Kundalini energies, to develop our creativity, to open up to multidimensional presence, to be able to um, achieve a communication with beings from other dimensions, with ourselves in many dimensions, to open up subtle pathways to um, respond more directly to these worlds through our senses. So all of this is natural. It's actually something that humans are born with, but then we forget. How can we remember? In the world that we live in today, with this excessive so electrosmog pollution, where there's excessive chemical pollution, where our belief systems have become so toxic, where our emotional bodies have become so disconnected. Um, yes, we need to return to balance. The earth needs to return to balance because we as humans have taken over a role that doesn't belong to us. we've taken over a role where rather than being guardians of the earth, we've become takers, we've become destroyers. So Gaia's gardens are these, pockets similar to these power centers where we can reconnect with who we are and then create a resonance field that can move out. It also is a place, these are places where people would come together to explore their creativity, to live off the land, to become as off grid as possible, to learn to listen to the earth, to communicate with Mother Nature, to be in balance with the forces of life, the invisible as well as visible aspects of nature. So that's how I envision it. Um, and I've been working with a few people who also have the same vision, who also have land available to them and resources available, so we can actually uh, begin to create these. And I welcome more discussion from people who are watching this, and because this is something I know that many of us have been feeling called to. Oh, Gary, how do I get the CDs for meditations from your book, Doorway to Eternity? Bought your book nearly 2 decades ago in Mount Shasta and loved the CDs and want them again. Wow, so you were in Mount Shasta back then. Yeah, so this is CDs that were connected with my first book called Doorway to Eternity, which I wrote as a consequence of 10 years living in Mount Shasta. So the CDs are no longer available. If they are, they've been, their Amazon has jacked up the price to something that's, out of range for most of us. I do have a set of them, and what did I do with them? I think I uploaded them somewhere. I forget where. I do have them somewhere. I could see if I could maybe upload them to my website and just share them that way. I'm not so technologically gifted. If there's someone out there who can help me with this to, redo my website, I would really appreciate that. The website's been untouched for the past year, and there's so much I'd like to put on that, which I'm not able to at the moment. Many of these books also need to be republished because they've been out of print. But whatever is available is on Amazon. I think the later books, Homo Luminous, Gaia Luminous, Ilahi Nur, and now Fearless Presence are on Amazon. There's one that I'm hoping will come out this year called Isa, Son of the Sun. So it's a play on words. So Isa is the name for Jesus in India. And the Son of the Sun, the second sun, is the source of our physical warmth on this planet. And there's a direct connection, when we talk about our sun, which is the center of our solar system, there's a direct link that we have with the consciousness of the sun, which we can receive through the etheric body, the prana body. So when people talk about sun gazing, for instance, we are opening that connection into the etheric realms, and therefore creating a bond to the causal aspect of our being, the soul aspect of our being as well. So Son of the Sun is an ancient Persian prophecy which refers to Isa. And so this book is about the life of Isa in the East, which is quite different from what we know from the Christian tradition in the West. And it's very empowering and very beautiful and very touching for me. And so I've been looking at a lot of different historical sources for this, and then filling it in with just tuning in directly as I can. Um, so I'll keep you updated on that. Tinika, hi. Let us, although all dark or through all darkness, share happiness and light together. There is so much love to focus on. Absolutely. Um, this there's a potential for a lot of cataclysm and destruction, and all of that is very real in the third dimension. But what's happening now, and I know you all know this, is that we are shifting dimensional um, frequency, and our experience of this earth in a higher dimension of or higher density of frequency is very different from what we would experience in the third dimension or third density of frequency. So if we can achieve this collectively, somehow, not somehow, very purposefully and choicefully, um, we can expect that when these things start to happen, the magnetic excursion, the solar micronovas, the galactic superwaves, the increase of cosmic ray intensity, um, even perhaps the crustal plate displacement, which means entire continental shifts take place. Now, this will be very different. We actually get on this wave and learn to surf it rather than get drowned and pounded by it. So this is my hope and my prayer with all of us together. And we are incredible beings of light. We have come here from across galaxies to participate in this. And what happens on this earth affects galaxies. So it's not a small thing that we're doing here. But it means we need to wake up. We need to remember who we are. We need to come together collectively and purposefully to make this so. So I really feel grateful that even in these weekly meditations, that we have the opportunity to do this on some scale. Um, I'd like it to be more interactive, and maybe we can figure out a way we can do so on Zoom once a week, because that way at least we can see each other and communicate verbally, not just through chats. So again, I don't have that much technical expertise in the field of communications. So if some of you can help me with this, great. What I'm also looking at now is finding a censorship-free channel or platform. I'm getting increasingly allergic to YouTube and Facebook and all these big tech censorship platforms which tell you what to think and do and what not to think and do. So there's a question from Third Coast. Kira, do you have a Patreon channel or a way we can support you for all you do for us? Oh, thank you. I don't have a Patreon channel. I feel like we're doing this together, and I say pay it forward. Buy the books if you wish, because that can, it's a source of information. You can pass them along to people. Personally, I feel like everything I need, I'm given. It's in the flow. I don't need much in terms of physical resources, especially at this time when I'm not able to travel so much. There's a flow to everything. I do subscribe to what the Incas referred to as Aini, which is this whole principle of reciprocity. You open the channel to give and then you receive at the same time. That's the way the universe is built. But I don't have any of these Patreon and what are they called, the GoFund channels. It's just too complicated for me. So I'm sorry. But buy the books, I will be doing a series of webinars, um, and if I can figure out a way to create some income from that, maybe that's the way to do that too. So, but again, it's something I'm not very good at. um, but really, thank you for the thought. I really appreciate your desire to reciprocate. Marianne says, Natasha, Cosmic Empress says that the planets in our solar system are Earth in other timelines in which things didn't go so well for Earth. Do you agree? Mm. Interesting. So what she is saying here is that other planets such as Mars and Venus and Mercury represent future timelines in which the Earth was destroyed in some way. I'm not sure I fully agree with that. I think there are certain aspects of that which I resonate to. I think they're on different dimensional planes. They're not obviously thriving with life in the physical dimension of matter, but they could be thriving with life in other dimensions. We don't know. And I also know that Mars, for instance, was a planet that was thriving in the physical dimension of matter and was destroyed. There was also another planet known as Tiamat, which was shattered um, and became the asteroid belt, which now circles across around the sun between Mars and Jupiter. So I know there's many different interpretations of all this. Um, I sometimes wonder about what this means. I don't think the veils between the different dimensions or between different realities are as strong as we think. I think that, or for instance, death, physical death, as we call it. I have a friend in Australia. A friend of hers died a couple of days ago, and she's able to track him. And she's quite clairvoyant, and so she was tracking him as he moved on. And for the first day or so, he was, after going through a very painful state in the hospital, where the hospital staff are not allowing the family to visit because of COVID regulations. He was very confused, very fearful, and died in that fear. And suddenly, as my friend saw, he found himself in his subtle bodies, pain-free, um, no longer in hospital. Or actually, he was in hospital. He could see his loved ones around, and they were crying and grieving, and he couldn't figure out why. It's like, I'm feeling so much better. I don't need to be in the hospital. I'm fine now. Let's go home. He didn't realize that the physical body had died, because in his subtle body, his astral body, um, it wasn't so different from the physical. So for about a day or so, he was kind of, let's go home, and a bit confused. Why is everyone grieving? Why can't I talk with them? And then, later she tracked him as he went further into the light and moved on past the proximity to the earth realm. So I think these other dimensions, whether they're for the human soul or the collective earth soul, may not be so far distant from what we experience now. So it may be that in a slightly different dimension that we may not be able to see from our side of the veil, but they may be able to experience from that side of the veil. So from our perspective, there's only one single earth, one single solar system, one single planet. From that side of the veil, there could be two or three or more. In every dimension, there could be a separate reflection of these planets. Just like there could be separate reflections of our own DNA existing in different dimensions. So when people talk about 12 strands of DNA, is it 12 physical strands or two physical strands that are linked with two strands in the etheric body, two strands in the astral body, two strands in the causal body, and so on? So, I think this is much more multidimensional than we realize. Oh, Stephen, yeah, I can help you out with the technical sides of things, Kiara. I'll email you so we can talk more about that. Absolutely, I'd love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's do it. It's time. Yeah, so if you don't have my email, just ask me. I'll give it to you. Or I'll just write it here. Kiara@eternaldoorway.com. And there's someone else who I've just been talking with yesterday. Did I mention this already? So she has got a friend who's working on a new platform which will be completely censorship free, and we're talking about maybe having a channel on this to replace the Age of Pandora channel. Oh, I need to also tell you this. Age of Pandora, many of you have been following me and David Shurjan, my co-host for the Age of Pandora, for the past year or so. It's a weekly show, and we've been interviewing many leading voices in this awakening field. About a week ago, David felt that he needed to take a break, and so we're going to dissolve the Age of Pandora as it stands right now. Instead, what I'm looking at is this new platform on a censorship-free channel, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm thinking of changing the name to Age of Gaia to make it, it's like the Age of Pandora was a vision of how it could be here on Gaia. And now it's time to get down to brass tacks and to build the Earth, the new Earth, from the ground up. So, Age of Gaia. And what we will be doing is continuing to interview people who are on the forefront of this awakening. Some of them may be known, some of them may not be known. But I think this is more and more a trust that we are given collectively to build and to create together. So, third coast, I love that question. So maybe Gaia has an astral, etheric, and causal body just like us. Yes, absolutely. So what we call the Earth, or what we consider the Earth, the physical Earth, is one aspect of her. Gaia is much more than that. So there's a distinction I make between Mother Earth, actually Mother Earth is Gaia, between the Earth and Gaia. So when we're relating to her as a living consciousness, it's Gaia. It's the sum total of all these different bodies. So just like when I'm relating to you as a human, I'm not just relating to you as a body, although many of us have been conditioned to do so. I'm relating to you as a interconnected wholeness, including the etheric body, the emotional body, the mental body, the soul body. So people have different names for all of these. By just for simplicity's sake, we can talk about the physical body, the astral body, and the causal body. The causal body being the realm of the soul, the astral body being the subtle senses, the etheric body and the physical body being very close together, but the etheric body being the prana that feeds the physical body. But if these are connected together and there's no barriers, there's no hucha, then we are interdimensionally present. We are linked. Uh, the higher aspects of our being can work through these human aspects effectively and powerfully and joyfully and lovingly. So, Tarun is asking, can you make a course for enlightenment? I've been doing that. The last year when I wasn't able to travel, we were doing this online. So we were doing this primarily with European countries. So we were doing it for time zones, for the European time zone. There's been a lot of interest now from North America, from other places, from Australia and New Zealand. So we've been talking about doing this at a different time that's suitable. And it may happen soon. I've been kind of postponing it just because I'm a bit lazy sometimes. And just because I don't have, it's like to make something like this work takes resources. Someone who can do the coordination, and so I've been a bit lazy on that. And again, if some of you in different parts of the world can help coordinate this, it will make it easier. Okay, there's a question. Where does Aluna from the Kogi traditions fit into the Gaia story for you? Define Aluna for me. I used to know, I forgot. In fact, I have a friend whose name is Aluna. And she is a friend of mine from Mount Shasta, and she's worked a lot with the Quero, with the Kogi people. Aluna Joy Yak Kim. But I forget exactly what Aluna means. Marianne, you were physically ill for a while. Yes, I'm okay now though. I think in terms of physical illness, I don't see it as an illness so much as a transmuting. It's the same thing with any kind of illness, whether it's a fever, a flu, the cancer, or whatever it may be. That's actually, the old structures of consciousness breaking down. If we can rebuild them effectively, a vibrational frequency is qualitatively different. That's our challenge. And part of what I want to do with Age of Gaia is to work with a potential co-host who is very adept with herbs and different ways to work with the physical body for health. And so it would be even easier if we had these Gaia's gardens with medical technologies as well as inner technologies that can really support health, not just the absence of disease, but true health, wholeness, wellness, which very few of us are actually able to hold. Because true health is much more than the absence of disease. It's about a fully functioning nervous system. I noticed there's a question here about Kundalini energies, the Kundalini serpent rising and descending. That's what we're talking about also. So Flory is asking, could you please talk about the Kundalini serpent rising and the alchemical process? Thank you. Drunvalo Melchizedek talks about this a lot too. There's a book of his called Serpent of Light. And he's talking about the dragon lines or the serpent lines of the earth. So these are like the meridians or the chakras of the earth. So this is within the etheric body of the earth. And once these are actively flowing, it supports the consciousness of all life on this planet. So the same way the Kundalini activation, the rainbow serpent awakening within our personal bodies creates a connection between earth and sky. So what happened with the magic box ceremony in Uluru last year, December 21st, was the activation of the rainbow serpent. Sorry, so this is um, the release of the energies of the rainbow serpent across the earth to build a rainbow bridge between earth and sky. It's already been initiated, and we can continue to support this in our own ways. So we're talking about the rising Kundalini that comes up as magnetic forces from the earth up to the sky. We're also talking about a descending Kundalini or cosmic Kundalini, which is electrical in nature and moves downwards through all these different bodies to stimulate and to cleanse. So it's a dual process. So that's why it's a double helix. One is the rising energies, one is descending energies. And the central channel, the Sushumna, is how these energies get integrated together. So for many of us, we have focused in our spiritual journey on activating these upper chakras, especially the crown and the third eye, or even the throat and heart. But we haven't sufficiently worked on cleansing and occupying the lower chakras, the third, second, first. And this is what we need to actively do to ground our physical, spiritual force in the earth plane, to awaken in our physical body as conscious divine beings. So it's one thing to be in a state of enlightenment where you're entering into cosmic union. You may be in a state of bliss for a while, but you cannot maintain that. And this is part of your question, Tarun. You cannot maintain this because the pathway isn't fully open. So as soon as the energy starts moving downwards, it meets resistance. And then it kind of what's that, when the candle flame, it sputters out. And so what we're doing now, the entire focus that I'm working on now, forget about these chakras. They're already open. For most of us, we don't have to worry about that. The crown chakra, the third eye, we've already opened that up. Now it's time to open up and then clear out the lower chakras, which requires emotional balance, emotional awareness, self-reflection, commitment, all those things that we as humans are capable of doing very purposefully. So Sheena says, after the contraction and the distances, there will be expansion and closeness. There will be a way to reward Mahatma Kyara. Oh my gosh. That's a bit too much for me to wrap around. Well, it's something for me to actually work on. I think we have. Rumi talks about this beautifully. He talks about these different stages of enlightenment. The first is when you're identified as a drop, and you're seeking, and you're searching for something outside of you, and then you merge with the ocean, and you become the ocean, and that's the second stage of enlightenment. And then there's a third stage, which we don't really understand so well, which is the ocean entering into the drop, the primordial consciousness, the one self, entering so deeply and so fully into a humanness that the humanness is fully um, surrendered to our divinity. And that's what a Mahatma is. A Mahatma is when our soul presence is fully anchored and able to extend in service to the collective. That's certainly my desire. I wouldn't say that it's been accomplished to the extent that I would wish. In times to come, I would hope that this becomes real for all of us. But thank you, Sushina. Um, so then you continue for his help to us, for the rich sharing, for his constant, strong, decisive presence. Thank you. I mean, that appreciation is appreciated. Third Coast says Penny Kelly has a wealth of knowledge about herbs, natural and energy healing. Okay, so check that out. A lot of it is just about communicating with the body. So looking at illness as a friend, looking at painful circumstances as a gift, looking at emotional betrayals and fears as an opportunity to learn from. So what we tend to do is either deny something which we need to see for ourselves, or project those things onto another person or onto other circumstances. And then we get stuck in this victim cycle. And you can never be a victim without also becoming a perpetrator in some way. Much of the time that comes through as manipulation. So we've learned, because we feel insecure within ourselves, to manipulate other people to give us what we need. And then that victim aspect of self has created a perpetrator aspect. It's unconscious. We do this because we're frightened. We feel incomplete. We feel that's the only way we can have the things we need, which includes love. And if we realize that we don't need to keep looking for love, we don't need to continually, do this balance thing of am I giving, am I receiving more? We recognize that we are love. It's our truest, innermost nature to be love. And there's no such thing as love which is not also unconditional. And the biggest example of this, look at Mother Earth and how she loves us as humans, despite everything, all the destruction, all the imbalances, all our unconsciousness. And she continues to support, to hold us on this earth, because she recognizes that we're still growing in maturity. We're not complete as a species yet. So that's what I define as love. Why did I start talking about this? Yeah, so beautiful to see illness and difficult situations as a friend, to learn from that. So it's the only way we can get past duality. And this is something I've had to learn. For 30 years of my life, I've done a deep study of what's going on with the so-called Illuminati or deep state or shadow government, or the the dark agendas on this planet. And it's frightening. It's it creates a lot of cognitive dissonance. At first, I don't want to know. I don't want to see. I'd rather be safe in my illusions. And then there's also at this, once you start digesting what's happening, and we can extend this to what's going on in the last year with this pandemic. Once you start digesting this, then there's a tendency to get, really upset and angry and feel again, it's like, okay, if I'm not going to be a victim, what does it take to be sovereign? But then that sovereignty isn't pure. It's about um, somehow destroying the old way in order to grow into what we're supposed to. And that's still a subtle duality. How do we actually appreciate the gift that we're given in the darkness? It's something I haven't really figured out fully. I'm moving into that. I'm trying to understand from a bigger perspective what that means. But if you're truly on a journey to step out of duality, we need to also embrace the deep state. I'm not saying we need to condone any of the behaviors, but we need to understand that it's an extension of our own consciousness. That couldn't be out there if we are not what we are in here. It's all a reflection of each other. It's a holographic universe. Okay, so if we're coming up to the hour point, we started doing this as meditations, and most of us define meditation as you close your eyes and you go inside and go through whatever with your breath and with your imagery or intention. And I haven't done that in a few times. And it's not to say that I don't wish to, but I am also feeling like somehow these perspectives are important also. And if we can awake to who we are, we don't need to meditate, because then it becomes 24/7. If we remember who we are soul. We're not humans trying to become spiritual. We are soul embodied in human form for this time in linear space-time history. But we are much more than that. We are multi-dimensional. We are cosmic, primordial self. Not many selves. We are one self operating through many bodies in many dimensions. So that one self is who we are. If we can understand that, and that remembrance can come through everything we do or say or think and feel, that to me is enlightenment. It's not states of consciousness, it's just presence. Daily presence, whatever is going on, whatever feelings are up, whatever thoughts are there. It doesn't mean cutting out the dark, heavy aspects of us to focus only on the light, beautiful aspects. It's about embracing all of it and remembering this is all part of our divinity. It's just about bringing it into wholeness, which means embracing it all. And then watching things change by themselves, not by pushing, forcing, efforting. That's the nature of the universe. Things flow, things move. When you're pushing the river, things stop. It becomes difficult. And then we need to force our way back. So Marianne, I agree. Whatever comes up because of the particular mix of people here, is probably what needs to come up. It feels like you go with our flow. We're creating this together. And that's what I like about this. I mean, this becomes a meditation, you know, that all of us create collectively. Tinika says, daily presence in embracing love. Mm. All right, friends, so let's close for now. So we will not be doing the Age of Pandora next Tuesday, Wednesday, depending on your time zone. Um, and I'll let you know when we start doing that again. So it will probably shift to Age of Gaia, and it'll be on a different platform. And if you haven't watched some of the episodes on Age of Pandora, please go back and do so. They're all archived on David's channel, Above Duality. And it's been such a gift to have had this opportunity to work together, he and I. You know, it's like we came together about a year ago and said, you know, let's do this. It felt so right. And I'm really grateful to have that opportunity. We both are. And so one cycle ends, another begins. So we'll see where we go. It doesn't mean the end of anything. It's just different streams opening up. So Sheena, I know you don't like titles and roles. I don't want to give you any. They do not serve. And they are things of the old world, of the old idea of master. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because we don't want to be bound by roles or titles, but we also don't want to deny the essence of what that means. So in terms of what you were saying earlier about Mahatma, it's like when it becomes a title, I cringe. But when it becomes part of an unspoken presence, I welcome that. This is what our journey has been about. This is the third stage of enlightenment, where the ocean enters into the drop and operates through that drop, and the drop finds its fulfillment in being the ocean, and then there's no resistance at all. Yeah, so Flory, absolutely, we keep that peace and awareness in the background, and life becomes a constant meditation. Sushina, I also appreciate so much the circularity and closeness that for over a year you've been able to create, even online. Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually pleased that we can do this online almost as much as physically. In some ways more, because we can include people from across the earth. Even though we can't hug each other online, it's energetically possible, and the closeness is possible. Tarun is asking about Sri Bhagavan. Okay, I'll say something very briefly about this. About 20 plus years ago, I'd been living in the United States for a while. I heard about this person who went by Kalki at that time, and his promise for global enlightenment. And it was fascinating. I came and wanted to check it out, and I had some powerful experiences, and I wrote a book about that. But what I realized is that much of what the movement was about was in getting lost in the experiences or states of consciousness and making that into uh, some kind of a reward system, rather than living each moment in awareness, um, realizing that enlightenment is not about achieving a state of consciousness so much as bringing that awareness into everything we do and all that we are, becoming ordinary and extraordinarily extraordinary, um, fully human as well as fully divine. And a lot of people have in the past become trapped in this idea of enlightenment, which opens up, like I was saying earlier, which works with opening up these upper chakras, that isn't about anchoring that into the physical form to be effective in the ordinary world. So at some point, I decided that's not my thing anymore, and I have been not associated with that movement anymore. All right. Well, thank you all for all your comments. Leela says, "I want a real hug." Let's make that happen too. I really do think this whole madness that we're seeing now with travel restrictions and lockdowns and the medical mafia taking over is not going to last very long. People are waking up, and the collective consciousness is waking up, and that's what matters. And all these top-heavy structures will come crashing down. They have to. Hmm. All right. Good memories, good thoughts. So, hugs and love on all these dimensions. Until next time.